It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.
Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
On and on into the guns sailed the gallant 600. The Freedom Flotilla is minutes away from assault in international waters by the settler states' navy, and those that were supposed to be sent to protect them from Italy, from Spain, and from Turkey have turned turtle and ran away. One of the biggest scandals of modern times continues with the, not since Caligula appointed his horse as a proconsul of Rome, has there been a more grotesque appointment than Donald Trump appointing Tony Blair as the colonial governor of a new crusader government in the state of Palestine. It's all coming up over the next 2 hours. Stay tuned. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
Let me start with the breaking news. The Freedom Flotilla, the very best of humanity, who are approaching 110 nautical miles from the coastline of Palestine in the Gaza Strip, are now facing up to 20 Israeli Navy gunboats that have sailed out of their own territorial waters into international waters and appear bent on an act of international piracy, which may, of course, turn into mass murder. I have many friends on that flotilla, and so do many of you. And many of you have become friends, even of former foes of the people who gallantly took to the seas, to the high seas, in small ships to try and bring aid to the benighted people of the Gaza Strip. I'm thinking now of our guest Thiago Silva, who may or may not be able to join us, depending on what happens in the next hour or so, and my dear friend Yvonneridley, the Workers' Party candidate in Glasgow in the Scottish Parliament elections next May. I'm thinking of Greta Thunberg, someone I had little time for in the past, but who has proved over Gaza simply to be a heroine, worthy of the most exalted status. And they are, if they're going to make an example of anyone, it will surely be her. An absolutely bizarre effort by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel took place yesterday to try and paint this flotilla, which they had earlier described for weeks as the selfie flotilla, making out that they were all narcissistic, self-seeker personalities that were seeking to boost their own Twitter followings and their own profiles by taking to the seas and taking off on this odyssey. But now, according to the MFA of Israel yesterday, they are a Hamas flotilla. Of course, everyone that they brand as Hamas is open season, fair game for murder, as many a journalist, hundreds of journalists, have found in both Palestine and in Lebanon over the last 24 months. The branding of Greta Thunberg, of Yvonneridley, of Thiago, the branding of these brave men and women, young and old, as Hamas is itself grotesque. But just as grotesque, if not equally absurd and grotesque, was the photograph that they circulated in their Hasbara yesterday in trying to portray this flotilla as a Hamas operation. They fingered a man called Zahir Barawi, a British Palestinian who works in and around the Houses of Parliament and has done for decades, and of course would not have been allowed to if he was in any way an official of Hamas. Zahir Barawi is accused of being the mastermind of the flotilla. He's accused of being the puppeteer of Greta Thunberg. The only problem, apart from that, was that the photograph of Zahir Barawi that they circulated to the world was a photograph of me. After my encounter with the terrorism act at Gatwick Airport on Saturday, you could say I was a little shaken, a little stirred to have a target, literally, a circle, a target placed around my head and be accused of being a Hamas official, the mastermind of the flotilla. For the record, I have nothing to do with Hamas. I'm a supporter, as I have said multiple times over multiple years, on here and elsewhere. I am a supporter of an entirely different and separate Palestinian political party and organization. I'm a supporter of the Nelson Mandela of Palestine, as you've heard me say so many times. But when you're circled in a target and called a Hamas official, after what happened to me and Gayatri on Saturday, well, you can imagine we have had to batten down the hatches a little and make plans for the future. The truth is, this flotilla has nothing to do with Hamas. It has everything to do with the global, worldwide revulsion at the slaughter of the innocents. Hundreds of thousands, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, civilian people, 85% of them civilians according to Israel's own statistics, and most of them women and children, and 40% of them children. That worldwide revulsion was given voice in the United Nations last week, and all kinds of unlikely candidates lined up to express their support for recognition of a Palestinian state, as I pointed out to everyone when they did so, what Palestinian state was it that they were recognizing? Certainly not the one in the Oslo Agreement, which was concluded between Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin. Both of them got Nobel Prizes for it, Mr. Trump. It was brokered by Bill Clinton, the American president. It was adopted into American national law. Then it went to the Security Council of the United Nations, who adopted it, and it thus became the property of the entire United Nations, including the countries that had spent the last quarter of a century willfully betraying it. It included the countries that I cheered here on the last show for sending their ships along with the flotilla to give it protection in the event that what appears now to be happening, I'm hearing in my ear, now to be happening to that flotilla. Spain, Italy, and a drone from Turkey. They did indeed accompany the flotilla, but only up to the point that the gangsters of the so-called Israeli Navy sailed out to attack it, at which point these European Union countries, this NATO country, Turkey, turned tail, turned Turkey, turned turtle, turned Spain, turned Italy, went into reverse gear again, Signora Meloni, and ran away, leaving their own nationals potentially to be murdered in the next few minutes. Ordinarily, I'd speak about this for the whole of my monologue, but I must turn to the even more grotesque picture of the so-called peace plan advanced as an ultimatum by Donald Trump, giving 3 to 4 days, one of which has now elapsed, to the resistance organizations and the people they defend in the Gaza Strip to accept this in toto, or Israel will finish the job with America's full backing. In other words, the Holocaust, the genocide, will be completed, the final solution of the Palestine problem in Gaza, at least, if not as a precursor to Jerusalem and the West Bank also, will be completed. Every Palestinian in Gaza will be annihilated, extirpated, wiped off the face of the earth, unless they run into the sea, or, if the gates are open, into the desert. It is a biblical story. The Palestinians will decide this for themselves. But I'm entitled to take a view on the policy of Donald Trump and the inclusion of Tony Blair as the governor of Gaza. Imagine. The man who had to leave the premiership of Britain under metaphorical shot and shell, driven out by his own colleagues because of the lies that he had told and the war crimes that he had committed in Afghanistan and above all in Iraq. Exposed by the Chilcot inquiry as a liar, and though no charges were ever brought, a criminal to boot. That Tony Blair, of all people, presumably Satan was not available, should be picked by Donald Trump, who's going to assume the presidency of Gaza and make as his prime minister the utterly discredited war criminal husk, Tony Blair, who's made hundreds of millions of pounds, a Labour prime minister, is climbing up towards being a billionaire. If you include the wealth of his grasping family, he already is a billionaire. But he can't stay away from the smell of the crowds, the lure of the limelight. He can't stay away. He needs to be, at 72 years of age, at the center of things. Now, I don't expect him to pitch his tent in the Gaza Strip, but the very idea that the Palestinian people, whose state, which includes Gaza, is now recognized by almost every country in the world, will be governed not by Palestinians of any political party, not Marwan Barghouti, not Mahmoud Abbas, not Hamas, not any Palestinian. That Gaza will be governed by Donald Trump and Tony Blair is so fantastical. It would be rejected as a Netflix script for any kind of drama. It is so obscene that a man who killed 1 million Iraqis, who sent fanatic extremism cascading around the entire world, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all of it can be traced back to Tony Blair and George Bush and their invasions of first Afghanistan and then Iraq and then later Libya, later still Syria. These people have done more to inflate fanatic, extremist, sectarian hatred in the world than any other people, any other issue has ever done. And you're going to send them back to de-radicalize the people of Gaza, de-radicalize the 2 billion Muslims in the world. You're going to rewrite the textbooks. Who knows? Maybe the Quran. You're going to de-radicalize. You have radicalized more people on the earth than any person ever at any period of history, not excluding the Crusades. And that's what this looks like, smells like, feels like. It's a new crusade. It's the landing of that dreaded cross. It's the landing of men in chain mail and armor. It is medieval in character. I don't know if the Palestinians will accept it. It may be that such has been the industrialized slaughter, the genocide. It may be that the people will do so, and I'm certainly not putting myself in their shoes and telling them what to do. What I am saying is that an ultimatum that if you don't surrender to the genocide, then in 3 days from now, the genocide will be completed to the point of a final solution. And that's down to us. That's down to our governments, who pretend that they recognize a Palestinian state whilst complying and welcoming the severing forever of one part of that state, leaving only the West Bank, which is already populated by 800,000 illegal Israeli settlers, and the western part of Jerusalem, which has already been annexed by Israel. And Netanyahu says he's about to double the number of illegal settlers in the West Bank. So I ask again, where is this Palestinian state that you all recognized last month at the United Nations? What is this state? During the 1980s, working underground for the African National Congress, I had cause often to visit the Bantustans, Bophuthatswana, Transkei, Ciskei, Sun City. I know what a Bantustan looks like, but I'll tell you this, Trump and Blair have a Bantustan in mind that would make Transkei and Ciskei look like thriving, independent, sovereign countries. They have deceived you. The Arab countries who thought they had reached agreement with Donald Trump in New York just days ago have been utterly deceived again and again and again. Trump found agreement with them on a variant of this plan, only to present this plan to Netanyahu, who took a red pen through it and rewrote it completely. And then Trump announced that all these Arab and Muslim countries had agreed to what he was now announcing. As I say, I don't know if the Palestinian leadership in Gaza will accept it. I don't know what's going to come next, either for the flotilla, which is right now, this minute, entangled with Israeli warships. I don't know what's going to come next with relation to this new Crusader governorship in Gaza. What I do know is that if the flotilla consists of the best of us, our governments are rotten with the worst of us. We are governed by the worst of us. We are governed by the most hated, most reviled, most utterly morally bankrupt individuals in each and every one of our countries. It's the mother of all talk shows. There's a legend on the line in Oklahoma. It's May on Trump. Welcome back, May.
Trump is using a magic 8-ball to make his decision. He apparently has completely lost whatever mind he had to begin with. This is just ridiculous. Does he really think anyone's going to believe that? I'm here to say, and I'm here to join you and everybody else, the emperor has no clothes on. He's as naked as they come. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure he got naked with some young people. And that is why he so desperately is trying to kill this whole Epstein thing. And he's just making it worse.
I'm wondering when Donald Trump knew that he was implicated in these Epstein files and what it was that he knew. That's the big question, because he wouldn't have been banging the Epstein drum all this time and then suddenly to pull the rug. That tells me that it was a late decision, that someone came late to Trump to say, you know, you really don't want to be doing that.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Here's the poll this evening. Will Trump's Gaza peace plan succeed? Yes or no? You can vote on my Telegram, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, and on the YouTube community poll. You can usually vote on the YouTube stream, but it's not present on the ballot paper right now. I'll find out how that is, why that is. And you can vote, of course, if you're one of the vanguard, the creme de la creme, following me, supporting me on Patreon, patreon.com/George Galloway. If you want to call the show, it's toll free in the United States and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 0808 196 5522. and the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. Our favourite correspondent, I think I speak for almost all of you at least, is Professor Seyed Marandi, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. And I can think of no better man to talk us through this critical juncture at which we now stand. Professor Marandi, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. It's always an honour to interview you, though sadly it's almost always in the most dire of circumstances, and joined by my good friend, I can see, my good friend Rick Sanchez, on whose show I conducted quite an epic interview just the other week in Moscow. A big welcome to both of you. Starting please with the Professor Marandi. We have this grotesque plan of Donald Trump's to make Tony Blair the man responsible for more Muslim bloodshed and fanning the flames of more extremism and fanaticism in history, not excluding the Crusades. I mean, Tony Blair ain't no Richard the Lionheart. Is Donald Trump serious about this? Is this a goer, do you think?
I think it's, first of all, George, congratulations on being released after the harassment, and congratulations to you and your wife for being such courageous people who had such a huge impact on the anti-war movement and on myself as a young man and today as well. And I hope that in the years to come, I'll continue to learn from you, and that they will discontinue harassing you and learn a thing or two from you, so that maybe things will be better for humanity and for people across the UK and beyond. I think that it's either Trump's ignorance and foolishness, which is abound, or it is an insult to the people of Palestine, to put this person who's one of the most despised people in the world. Not only has he killed well over 1 million Muslims, or he has their blood on their hand just in Iraq, but large numbers of Christians, thanks to him, left Iraq to never return. And the UK has many Christians from Iraq who've been there for well over 1,000 years, their ancestors, and they've been uprooted because of the catastrophe that he and Bush and the political establishment of the UK and the US brought about. And Iraq will never return to normal. And as a result, we have ISIS and alqaeda well, nowadays we know that Petraeus is very a big fan of alqaeda and its leader. But the catastrophe that they brought upon Iraq spread across the region, and we're still, people across the region and beyond, are paying the price. Even those in the UK who hate foreigners and refugees and immigrants, instead of blaming these immigrants, they should be blaming the likes of Blair, who destroyed their countries and their lives and forced them to move to the UK.
Professor, is it going to fly? I mean, are we really 3 days away from either acceptance of this new Crusader government, or the Israelis are given total, unrestrained American support to finish the job, as they put it, the job being the annihilation of 2 million people?
I cannot imagine the resistance accepting these terms of capitulation. And I think those countries like Qatar and Turkey and the others that gave their support, that was an extraordinary betrayal of the Palestinian people. This is basically an unconditional surrender, and it would be the end of Gaza and the Palestinian people in Gaza. The head of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad rejected it. I have no reason to believe that Hamas will accept it, but the resistance in Gaza has been threatened for 2 years now. and Trump has given them final warnings on numerous occasions. I cannot see the United States doing much more, especially at a time when, George, you know this better than I, the Israeli regime is despised across the world. Here in Sochi in Russia, where we're attending a conference, everyone dislikes the Israeli regime. Across social media, wherever you look, people have turned against the regime. In the United States, its support among Democrats collapsed, among independents it collapsed, and now young Republicans, among them it's collapsing too. The regime, how far can it go with this Holocaust in Gaza? I think that the further they push, the worse it's going to get for Trump and for the Israeli regime. I do not believe that they have the ability to defeat the resistance, and I don't think that Hamas or any of the resistance groups are going to capitulate simply because Trump wants them to or demands them to do so.
Rick Sanchez, my old chum and top broadcaster across the United States for decades, Fox News, CNN, RT America, and now with a show which is breaking all records in viewing figures, although we're not allowed to watch it in our countries. Let me turn to you. I mean, Trump's plan for Gaza was already wacky enough. Trump Towers, casinos, condominiums, Jared Kushner moving in as a real estate operator and so on. It was already zany. Why did he make it so utterly absurd by saying that Tony Blair will be his prime minister in situ? What's he on?
Well, I think to a certain extent, and we're here at Valdai, where I suppose intellectuals gather once a year, with one exception, that's me. I would be more of a pseudo-intellectual, I suppose. And we discuss all the things that are going on in the world. And, George, one of the things that I've been talking about, and I think you and I may have talked about this in many of the things that you and I recently discussed, is the fact that Donald Trump will do and say things based on a necessity to own the headlines. And that's it. Just because Donald Trump says something doesn't mean he means it. If you go back and you look at his famous book with Cohen, a guy who used to be his personal attorney, Cohen wrote in his book that every morning they would wake up and the first thing Donald Trump would say to him was, what can we do today to become the headline in the New York Times? Or what can we do today to become the headline or the top story on CNN? And that would be especially true if they had something they wanted to cover up or they wanted something that they didn't want people to be talking about. So according to Mr. Cohen, what they would do is they would come up with some outlandish suggestion, some outlandish declaration, and use that to cover what else people were talking about that he didn't want people to be talking about. And the most recent example of that was his horrible speech at the UN, where everybody in the world was criticizing his speech at the UN. So what did he do? The next day he came out with a post on Truth Social where he said to the world that Ukraine was winning the war, was about to win the war, and they were going to take back Crimea and all 4 oblasts involved in the Donbass and Zaporizhia, etc. Why did he do that? Because he didn't want people talking about what was going on at the UN. So I think sometimes we fall into the trap of believing everything that this man says, knowing fully well that he doesn't believe most of the things he says. I only say that because obviously it's abominable to think that Tony Blair, a man who has so much blood on his hands, you say 1 million, and last time I checked it was 750,000. Whether it's 750,000 or 1 million, I don't think it really matters to the people who are the parents or the grandparents of those people who died. Nonetheless, Tony Blair as the person in charge of Gaza would be absolutely the worst choice anywhere in the world. Whether Trump knows that, or he has enough historical reference to understand that, or whether he's simply doing this because he needed to create a headline, I don't know, but all of those are plausible.
Rick, staying with you for a minute, you'll know what happened to me after I left you on our way home, which took us to Dubai and Istanbul. My good wife and I were detained, not arrested, and detained by the counter-terrorism police. Now, it's reached the stage where even someone as well known as me with the parliamentary history that I have across 5 different decades can be taken away by men with guns, not arrested because that would give us rights, and they didn't want us to have any rights, detained under the Terrorism Act. You are not under arrest, but you may not leave. You have no right to silence. You must, on the pain of automatic conviction under the Act, answer any and all of our questions. It's gotten pretty hairy here in Britain for anyone speaking their mind, speaking their truth, whether it's right or it's wrong. We've reached the stage where my appearance on the Rick Sanchez show in Moscow gets me and my wife arrested at gunpoint and held for 4 hours and 5 hours respectively, and all of our electronics seized and still not returned, causing chaos, havoc to our work and our family life. Do people in Russia know just how much of an enemy Britain is determined to make of Russia?
They do, and you have been the center of conversation here in Valdai. Valdai is a place where people like you come from all over the world. There's some, I think, close to 300 people here from all over the world, representing everything from embassies to intellectuals, people who are journalists, and people from the academic world. And the topic of George Galloway has been one of the top topics discussed every night at dinner, because that's all this place is people coming together to share ideas and talk about some of the things that are going on in the news. Obviously, the whole idea here is trying to figure out how we go from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, and how do we make sure that the multipolar world doesn't make the same mistakes, thereby becoming another hegemonic situation. So, okay, great. That's all very important stuff. But in the process of all of that, what happened to you becomes important. It's a very big conversation, obviously, in this part of the world. And it makes a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, even people who I've planned to have on my show who have suddenly backed out because they're afraid because of what happened to you. And, you know, what I sense, George, is that there's no country in the world right now worse than the UK when it comes to this. Because yours is not the only example that I've learned of lately. I would hope, I think, and I pray, as a good Catholic that I am, that the situation in the United States is a little different. I haven't seen a case like this in the United States. Say what you want about Mr. Trump and his administration, and there's plenty to say and plenty to criticize. I have not yet seen the remnants of this type of behavior where they would accuse a U.S. citizen of being a terrorist in the circumstances that that the UK did to you. The biggest story and the biggest parallel or comparative story that's going around in the world right now is a picture of George Galloway being called a terrorist, with U.S. officials meeting with the new leader of Syria, who actually was a terrorist, while people like Petraeus kiss his ass. And I think if that doesn't tell all, I don't know what the hell does.
It's quite a world we're now living in. May, with God's grace, it pass quickly. Professor Marandi, you don't need to be Einstein to watch what the movements of American Air Force tankers headed for Qatar in the last 24 hours, to infer that the attack on Iran might very well, maybe even coincide, who knows, with the attack on the flotilla. They've still got it in for your country, Iran. I do hope the Iranian people are well prepared for it.
Yes, it's quite possible. The Iranians, ever since the halt in hostilities began, they've been preparing themselves for round two. They know that the United States and the Israeli regime are not honest at any level. First, during the first war that they waged on Iran, we all remember that Iran was negotiating with the United States. And as Iran was negotiating, the United States and the Israeli regime were conspiring against the country. And people across Iran remember that. Even that segment of society, George, that still remained pro-Western or tilted towards the West after that war, they woke up and their world views have changed. And you have a much more united country today than we had before that war. And more recently, the Iranians, they signed another agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, knowing that it will have no impact on the E3 and what they did, but they did sign the agreement of cooperation just to show that the French, the British, and the Germans were lying, and that they had no intention of delaying the snapback mechanisms. But what they signed it to prove that the other side was not sincere. So right now, the expectation is that at some point the Israeli regime will attack, but this raises a question, which I don't think in the West they ask too often, if at all, and that is that, well, if the Iranian nuclear program has been obliterated, as Trump keeps telling us, then what is the reason to attack Iran again? And this just shows that this was never about the nuclear program. It was never about human rights. It was never about any of these things. It was only about Iran's independence, Iran being the only truly independent country in the region, and the fact that Iran, along with Yemen, of course, are the only two states that support the Palestinian people and are sincere about it. In the case of Qatar, they pretend to be supportive, or Erdogan and some others, they may pretend, but they don't pay a price for it. They don't do any real service to the Palestinian people. But because Iran is steadfast in its support for the people of Gaza, for the people of Palestine, in their opposition to apartheid in Palestine, that is why Iran is targeted. So whether the nuclear program has truly been obliterated or not, that's one issue. But if we're to believe Trump's words, then obviously there's no reason to attack again. And this should be a major question among Western politicians and journalists, but I have no doubt that this will not be something that's discussed on Western media, legacy media.
Finally, Professor, these Arab leaders and Muslim leaders, Pakistan, Indonesia, Turkey, they were either fooled by Donald Trump in New York, or they were even more complicit in this catastrophe than we thought they were. Which is it?
I don't know about Indonesia and Pakistan because they're far off from the center of conflict and they may not be so closely involved. And I'm pretty sure that they're getting their information and their cues from regional leaders. But in the case of the Erdogan and Qatar and Egypt and Sisi and these regional countries, what they did was unacceptable. And they're closely involved with what's going on in Gaza. They know exactly what's happening. This is our neighborhood. They have no excuse to pretend that they were fooled. And even if they were, then they should have issued a second statement condemning Trump and condemning this process. But we have yet to see that, just as we've yet to see them do anything. Mr. Erdogan sent a couple of drones to fly over the flotilla, but we know that those drones are not going to do anything to the Israeli regime. This is all for show. But what are the good things about all this, if you can call it that, because this is a Holocaust? In this darkness, everyone has been exposed. All those who were lying across the world about human rights, about human values. Zionism has been exposed, and those who pretend to support the Palestinian but do nothing, they've been exposed. And the true supporters of the Palestinian people have also been made clear to all of us, whether they're the protesters in Italy or in Australia, or those who are fighting in Lebanon or supporting them in Yemen, wherever they are in the world, they are the shining stars of humanity, and those who pretend to be humane and to be supporting human values but sit silently and continue to do business as usual, they have nothing. They are empty shells.
Finally, to you, Rick, the tomahawk issue. Little benwallace, the former defense minister in Britain, the one who ran away when he was supposed to face me at the Oxford Union, literally turned his ministerial car around halfway to Oxford, has rediscovered his bottle. He was on stage today saying that we have to make life unlivable in Crimea. We must squeeze the life out of Crimea, and we must use these long-range American weapons with which to do so. If tomahawks from the US are fired into Russia, it's World War III, isn't it?
We had a long discussion yesterday with Mr. Lavrov. It was about an hour and a half, and he answered that question quite pointedly. Yes, you're right. Mr. Wallace is a nincompoop. The dangerousness of his statement today, saying that immediately the West, UK, I suppose, being the leader of this, needs to bomb the Crimean bridge. I suppose he means while commuters are on it, while babies and mothers and people are traveling back and forth. We need to bomb that bridge, end it once and for all, destroy it with people on it, and then go in there and destroy Crimea. And I guess he's intimating that we should kill all the people who live in Crimea, because that will show Putin. Putin tends to look at Crimea as a trophy, and by killing all those people in Crimea, it will hurt Putin's sense of what he thinks. Mr. Wallace seems to think will be a way to get to Putin would be by killing all the people who live in Crimea. I'm still shaking my head and wondering who in the hell is even capable of saying something so dangerous, so crazy as that, because what he's obviously proposing is World War III. He's basically saying, I tomorrow would love to start a war with Russia, and I want Russia to be provoked into this war, and the way to do it is to bomb Crimea. That's basically what he said. I mean, it's further far removed than what Donald Tusk said in Poland, which is that we immediately need to start war with Russia because there were some wayward drones that nobody has yet figured out, and there's no evidence to prove that they even came intentionally in any way from Russia. So I mean, look, the facts are the facts on the ground. That's where it is right now. As for these tomahawks, the sense I get from the Russians is they think it's mostly palaver. And I think what Mr. Lavrov said yesterday to us was that it's not going to make any difference, that unfortunately the die is cast when it comes to the situation in Ukraine. One gets the sense, people like yourself and myself, who I'm a journalist, I just look at this. I'm not here to defend Russia or make excuses for Russia or make excuses for anybody. But the situation as it appears right now in the Ukraine region is that the Russians would love nothing more, and the people that I talk to in Russia would love nothing more than for this war to end. But for it to end, somebody in the West has to stand up and say to Russia, I understand your deal points. I understand your lack of security. I understand your need for wanting to create neutrality in Ukraine. And I understand your need to have those 4 oblasts where most of the people worship as Russians, speak as Russians, and live culturally as Russians. We understand your need to respect the sovereign rights of those people as well. And if somebody would just say that to the Russians and basically say, we understand your perspective. Let's see if we can figure things out based on what your needs are and match them with the other side's needs. But instead of doing that, and this is what's so frustrating about this crap, is that nobody is saying that. Instead, they're overlooking everything that Russia says and continuing to simply back the other side. I feel terrible for the people of Ukraine because they're stuck in the middle of this. But unfortunately, what this means, George, is, and the sense that I get from speaking to a lot of the folks on the Russia side, is that they're going to continue doing what they have to do until they're given a reason to stop. And in the process, as your friend and my friend, our friend, I suppose, General McGregor has said, that means that, next stop Odessa. And, it's ridiculous that the West, especially, the UK and the Germans and Mr. Macron and others are creating a situation right now where they're making it impossible for the Russians to not find a way to stop doing what they really don't even want to do and would have been happy to stop with 2 oblasts just a year and a half ago. And that's the reality of the situation, man. And it's frustrating to see that, but it is what it is. Most people would say, I don't blame the Russians for not stopping. Nobody seems to even forget even negotiating with them. They won't even respect them and listen to what their point of view is in this thing. I think that's a mistake.
Breaking news, gentlemen. The flotilla boat on which Thiago Ávila, the Brazilian activist, I think it's called the Madleen, has been boarded by the Israeli forces. It has been intercepted, and presumably the others are destined so to be, with nobody to protect them, least of all their own governments, certainly not the governments that sent their gunboats out. It looks like a very, very difficult situation. I was involved in the Turkish boat, the Mavi Marmara, when 10 of the people on board were murdered by Israeli forces. My own parliamentary assistant, Kevin Ovenden, was taken to a dungeon in Ashkelon. And we'll be lucky if we get out of tonight with nobody dead, Professor. Your reaction to this news?
Well, George, we know that the Israeli regime, they're deeply concerned about baby formula. They're really worried that the infants in Gaza will have baby formula to drink and to use and to be fed upon with. Their contempt for the Palestinian people, their contempt for the infants of Palestine, for the children of Palestine, is known to all of us. They've been trying to starve the people of Palestine for 2 years. And those courageous men and women in this flotilla, they are not going to most probably have any success in getting that infant formula to the children of Gaza. But they are helping create greater awareness about what is happening in Gaza. The Americans and the Zionists can take TikTok and they can take CBS and they can take all the media outlets in the world. But everyone has woken up. It's too late. They should have done this 2 years ago. Everyone knows what they're doing to the children, the starvation, the airstrikes every single day. Tens of people at least are killed every single day. Children are maimed for life, traumatized for life. This is the reality of Gaza, and this is what the West supports. This is what NATO supports. This is what these regional regimes that signed that disgusting letter support, because they've done nothing to block. When these countries did not break off ties with the Israeli regime, when they refused to stop sending oil or purchasing natural gas or sending goods, then how can we expect African countries and Latin American countries and Asian countries further away to break off ties with this satanic regime? But what these heroes in the flotilla have done is that they've woken up more people, and they've angered those who've already been woken up before due to the excellent work of people like yourselves. And the reason why you are harassed and why they take you and your wife is because the two of you are busy waking up humanity about the crimes that are being committed. Hopefully, at the end of the day, all of these, the children of Gaza, they will survive and they will grow up in their own country, and their country will be freed. And Jews, Christians, Muslims around the world who stood up for the rights of the Palestinian people, like these men and women in the flotilla, they will be able to say to their children and their grandchildren that we took part in protests, that we were active to help the people of Palestine. And I'm sure that there is light at the end of this dark tunnel.
Amen. Gentlemen, in the supermarkets, you sometimes get a two for the price of one offer. And that's what you have given us this evening.
Well,
a double delight.
George, I should tell you what happened. We were all having dinner tonight at the Valdai thing. It's wonderful, by the way. We had an Italian journalist, and Mo and I were sitting together, and there was a German and a Indian journalist and a Russian journalist, and there was just an interesting group of people, and we were sharing ideas. And suddenly he turns to me and he says, "I gotta go." And I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I got to be on with Galloway tonight." So I said, "Well, do you mind if I come with you? I've been thinking about George for the last several days, and I want to say hi to him. Yes. Do you mind if I just step in and just peek in and say hi? I had no intention of bigfooting the interview. Please don't think ill of me. And we're also not sharing a room, by the way." So he said, "Come on in and say hi to George." And that was the genesis of that. I just wanted to make sure we were clear.
I'm deeply grateful and delighted, doubly delighted to see you both in such good heart. And I hope those returning from Valdai to European countries don't suffer the same fate that Gayatri and I did on Saturday. Thank you, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the Valdai conference, and may God go with you. Let me take a quick break, and then it's your calls.
What a great show this is! I listened to it, I thought, wow, what a great show. I've called into your show today, George, because I'm a great caller. Probably the greatest caller you've ever had. I really am. The only way your show could be better is if it had more of me, Donald J. Trump, in it. You keep talking about me, George. You do. I've heard it, I have. So many of the American people, the best people, listen to your show. And I've heard them crying about me. I have, and I listen and I go, ooh, America, don't cry. Don't cry. You need to be careful what you say about me, George. You don't want me to put a tariff on your show like I did with China. And then you'll come running for my help, just like little Zelensky. You know, I know you will. I know these things. Make the mother of all talk shows great again. That's why we're here. That's what we're gonna do, George. We're gonna boost your ratings. Donald is gonna boost them bigly. I'm giving your show the Trump bump. You're welcome, George. Thank me. And remember, nobody talks like me. Nobody calls like me. And absolutely nobody ends a phone call like me. I'm hanging up now. Not because I finished, but because I won.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Will Trump's Gaza peace plan succeed, yes or no? Not many people think it will, and there's a huge response on the poll. 26,296. Very big for a Wednesday. You can vote on my Telegram, t.me/George Galloway. Do follow me, please, on Telegram. On my X, on the YouTube community poll, and on the YouTube stream. Now, as you might have just heard me give the breaking news to my two distinguished guests, who are both in Valdai, the Valdai conference in Sochi. We're we are hearing that the flotilla boat, which Thiago Ávila, our guest this evening, Brazilian activist, was sailing to Gaza, has been boarded by Israeli forces. Greg Stoker has just posted that they are 80 nautical miles off the coast and they are being surrounded by a number of boats. We're trying Greg also, Tig Hickey, our good friend, Thiago, of course, our advertised guest, and our friend Fra Hughes, but so far unable to. I'm sure that the Israelis have disabled all communication. But we'll keep trying for anybody on the flotilla. We'll keep watching the live feed from the boats and bring you any developments. If you want to call in about the flotilla and what is now happening, there are some live pictures there. Then here are the numbers. Toll free in the US and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. Free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 0808 196 5522. And the worldwide number 0044 203 966 2625. Let's take the first call of the evening. It's from the capital city of my own native land, Edinburgh, Kenneth on Tony Blair, where Tony Blair was actually educated, Kenneth. To our shame, he's sometimes described as a Scotsman.
Anyway, sorry to hear what happened to you on Saturday, George. That was disgraceful behaviour.
Thank you,
to
mate.
your wife.
Thank you.
Really bad. I also wish you well. About Blair, to bring him into the picture now is pretty bad. God knows what Trump is thinking. To bring him in, because he's hated. They hate him. They don't want anything to do with him. He's an evil man. He's always out for his money, and that's it. That's the story of him. He's just a horrible man, horrible person.
There must be money in it, Kenneth, but in fact, I think he's simply addicted to the attention. He's addicted to being in the limelight. There will be money in it for him or his cronies or his so-called foundation. I see that Larry Ellison, the guy that Trump has just put up to buying up TikTok and CBS and CNN, has given the Blair Foundation $300 million. I mean, talk about the life of Riley. Tony Blair has sure prospered since he left our shores, Kenneth.
He's in deceit. That's what he's done. And to do what he did to Iraq is unforgivable. You know what I mean? These poor people suffered. The poor Palestinian people are suffering. And they're going to bring him into the picture? What's going on? I mean, really what's going on here?
Tony Blair has sure unbelievable. Prospered. Kenneth, thanks for kicking us off. Let me go to England, Shaftesbury, where Tim wants to speak about Russia. Go ahead, Tim.
I wanted to say that I think it's a shame that nobody's brought out the Russian position in Ukraine, because they offered to just take Donetsk and Crimea and end the war. They didn't offer a ceasefire or anything like that. And nobody brought that, nobody from any side has brought that position out.
Well, we do all the time, Tim. We've been talking about this since 2014, when this war began. Not 3 years ago, but 11 years ago. And if you think how many opportunities, compromise opportunities there have been, Minsk 1, Minsk 2, the putative Istanbul agreement that Boris Johnson travelled to Kiev to wreck, the offer of meaningful negotiations from the Russian side. If you think how many lives have been lost, how many hundreds of thousands of square miles of Ukrainian territory has been lost, it's phenomenal that Russia is still painted as if it was a country that woke up one day and capriciously decided we're going to invade our next door neighbor. I mean, does nobody have a historical memory? Even 11 years of historical memory? Last word to you, Tim.
Tom?
Yeah, go ahead. Last word. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, well, I haven't heard you speak about it, but I watch the alternative media all the time, and they don't seem to speak about that, which was given, the view which was given at Anchorage, where Putin said, well, okay, we'll just take North and Crimea, and you can have the rest of it. Nobody seems to have brought that out. But maybe I'm mad.
Well, that's why it's good that you're now watching alternative media, because the media you've been watching in which this is not brought out is deceiving you. Its purpose is to lie to you, to manufacture consent for hundreds of billions of pounds, euros, dollars being shoveled in to the most corrupt country in Europe, official, as was always reported as such by the same Western media that now want you to think something completely different about Ukraine. Thanks for that, Tim. Now, you can scan the QR code right now on the YouTube stream. Keep it clean. I'll read your comments out. Christina Hines, great friend of the show. Absolute disgrace that surrounding countries have allowed Israel to get away with attacking the flotilla like this. It's an even bigger disgrace that all the countries from which the nationals on board these boats have allowed them to go perhaps to their death. Arcane Eclectic, great name, says Yitzhak Rabin was the only Israeli Prime Minister who ever supported a two-state solution, and he was assassinated by Zionist extremists, by the supporters of Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, I add. Yusuf Chaka says, what on earth has war criminal Blair got to do with Gaza? When he was PM, he didn't do jack for the Palestinians. The Crusades are back, and the sooner the Arabs realize it, the better. Fahad says, fake ceasefire to fool the world and Hamas, just like they had a fake ceasefire with Hezbollah. And Ben Johnson says putting Tony Blair in charge of Gaza is like putting Himmler in charge of the Warsaw Ghetto. The poll, 26,000 strong, is overwhelmingly of the view that all of this is going to fail in any case, which is an extraordinary thing. Now, by the way, you've been extremely generous this week donating to the show. A big thank you if you visited the moats.tv website, particularly Dennis Freeman, Daniel Hilson, Don Stewart, Anthony Scannell, and Patrick McMahon. If you haven't been over to leave £1, $1, €1, please do so now, moats.tv. Incidentally, we are in talks to launch, not presented by me, I can't do more, to launch Moats Asia and Moats Africa early in the new year. You could be a part of helping these things off the ground. Wouldn't that be a fine thing? 4 moats per week, 2 of them presented by me. Jamie is in Spain, in Malaga. He wants to talk about Ukraine and Russia. Go ahead, Jamie.
George, good evening. I've made so many notes, I don't know quite where to start. But firstly, I love your show, and it really cheers me, despite the sad news that we're getting at the moment. But I watch it every Wednesday and every Sunday, and I love it. I love Professor Marandi as well. The thing is, I'm so disgusted with my country. I'm so not with the people, but with the politicians. I'm so disgusted with Keir Starmer and David Lammy that they're not giving any support to these brave people who've gone out in these 50-odd boats traveling from Barcelona towards Gaza to bring humanitarian aid to the people suffering a genocide. It's so repulsive. I just don't know what else to say about it. George, I was disappointed to hear. I hadn't heard that the Spanish military boat had also turned back. I knew that the Italian 2 boats had turned back, but Spain as well, which is very disappointing. I mean, how can they leave these innocent people carrying humanitarian aid alone? Now they're being attacked. I think you said 25 Israeli vessels. It's just so repulsive. It's beyond words.
I mean, thank you, Jamie in Malaga. Stanley in London on the same subject. Go ahead, Stanley.
Hi, George.
Hi, Stanley. Go ahead.
Hi, George. It's Tanvir. I think you got the name wrong. It's Tanvir here.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
It's all right, George. I've been listening to you since over the 10 years or maybe 15. I can't remember. Just first time caller. And I just last time when you was on a Gatwick airport was, held by the British police. And that's where I really thought maybe, it's time to give you a call and give you one, how I feel about that. I think that the British establishment do not understand your long service for this country and for humanity. And on the top of that, the people label you that you preach for the Muslims and Palestinians, but they don't understand that you have been doing the work for the humanity over the last 30, 40 years. And maybe even longer. And before, lots of people who criticize you, they were not even born then, since you've been working for this cause. And I think, why do you have to keep doing this, man, George? You need to just give up, man. You just take a chill pill and rest with your family, enjoy your, I know it's not in your DNA. I know that you want...
It's very kind thought, but my family would be the first to condemn me if I took a chill pill and gave up. We are going to have to make some adjustments. I'm aware of that, but giving up's not an option. I have 6 children by the grace of God. I have a wonderful and extremely active wife. Who simply would not tolerate if I were not doing everything that I could to cry out for humanity, for peace, against war, against all the evils that we are watching, the unflushed toilet that the world has become. If I did not try to do my best to flush it, my family would never accept that. But I appreciate that you're reaching out with the best of intentions. But I could never do that. But we, as I say, we are going to have to make some adjustments, and they're underway. But the truth is, the world situation that we've got. I mean, I'd dearly love, for example, to talk about historical things on the show from time to time. I'd dearly love to talk about cultural things, about movies, about Netflix, about music. I have many other interests than mere politics. But we just can't get away from the international situation. I'd dearly love to talk about the price of gas and electricity in my own country and the ballooning profits of the energy companies. whilst the government cuts cold weather payments to the poorest and oldest amongst us. I dearly love to talk about the Labour conference this week, monstrosity as it was. But how do I get out of this cycle when there's a Holocaust going on? I mean, if you were alive in 1940, 41, whilst people were being gassed in death camps in the Holocaust, I mean, should you take a chill pill and stop worrying about it, stop thinking about it, stop talking about it, stop fighting against it? No, of course. And you'd be the last to suggest that one did. But that is what is happening now. The Palestinians are in the grip of a Holocaust. And as long as that's happening, as long as the danger of World War III, which will make all other issues otiose, continues to loom so large in the NATO-Russia conflict, how can we get away from these huge issues? Thank you for your good wishes, Stanley. Now, Sky News is now reporting that Greta Thunberg's boat, the Global Sumud, has now been boarded by the Israeli military after the flotilla was warned to change course. The live stream is still active. We are receiving it. And here are some of the live cameras on screen now. Now, we've just obtained a video clip from one of the flotilla boats from Thiago Ávila. It's a minute long. It shows a shipping radio in frame with a voice from an IDF officer warning those not to continue on their journey. This has just been posted online. Take a listen.
In an active war zone. If you continue and attempt to breach the naval blockade, we will stop your vessel and act to confiscate it through legal proceedings in court. You bear full responsibility for your actions.
Say that we are entering an active war zone, you're saying that we are entering a place where we are committing war crimes. This is against international law. Once again, the International Court of Justice made a provisional ruling that any attempt to hinder a humanitarian mission to Gaza is prohibited by international law and is complying with the request to make you accountable for the crime of genocide. The International Criminal Court has your Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu under an arrest warrant for the crime of starving children and starving people to death, using starvation and famine as a weapon of war. Therefore, it's our moral duty to continue sailing. It's our moral duty to refuse any attempt of an occupying force to control humanitarian aid for the Palestinian people in Gaza who have the right of their sovereignty, who have the right of their self-determination and to control their own borders. Therefore, we do not recognize you as a legitimate agent to control any attempt to bring aid to the Palestinian people in Gaza. We request you to stand down, to do not commit another war crime among so many that you've been committing, and to stand down. Do not engage with our peaceful, non-violent, humanitarian solidarity mission for the Palestinian people in Gaza. I advise you again.
That was the heroic and eloquent voice of our guest this evening, Thiago Ávila, who will not, it would appear, be able to join us on the show, though we will keep trying. He is literally reading the act to the Israeli forces who are boarding his ship. And such sang-froid, such class and style and courage and eloquence in the face of armed people. It's intensely moving, at least for me. Let's hear from the legend that is Erebos in New York on the flotilla. Welcome, Erebos. These are grim scenes that we're watching?
Yes, indeed, and more power to the people that are doing it. Greetings and salutations to them. They're literally, as I've mentioned before, putting their lives at risk. And this also highlights the sting and the stench of failure by the powerful countries that can do something, even though they're in the proximity of Iran, so they are in the neighborhood. And I'm speaking about China and Russia. And again, right? I'm not even asking for anymore your prescient call in the beginning of this massive slaughter of sending hospital ships, right? Because then you have to send air, land, and sea support to protect those hospital ships in order to breach and get there. And leaders, despite their own personal failing, leaders like Brezhnev and even Khrushchev, they would not have tolerated this if they were going to do something about it, right? Say what people will about them, they would not, unlike the liberals who came after them, those two jokers, Gorbachev and that other drunk fool, they would have done something, in the name of the Soviet solidarity and its allies and things like this. And this is absolutely outrageous because at the very minimum, China and Russia can stop trading with them and cut off their ties. The millions of Russians living in Israel, they have to know that they're living on occupied territory and they're violating whatever this international law thing, which has also been made an absolute joke, right? It's like the whole concept of the UN, ICC, ICJ, which the United Snakes of America was instrumental in creating. All of that has been not just flushed in the toilet, but it's being eaten by maggots in the sewer. That's where we at, and in terms of what's going on. And I don't want to get too aggravated because then I'm going to start cussing like a pirate, and that could put moats in jeopardy, because I really like to let loose, but I'm not going to do that. I wanted to say a quick word about the gas, the 2-for-1 coupon you got. That was excellent. And people were saying in the chat, which will lead to my third point very quickly, why Rick Sanchez was grinning like an idiot, when you're talking about serious things. And the reality is that's how some people deal with trauma. Some people becomes, it's a coping mechanism, right? Because I know people like that personally. You think you're sitting there and you're telling them something serious and it's like, and they smile like, what the fuck are you laughing at? You think what are you smiling at? But that's the way I've come to understand from being in the program for 10 years. That's the way some people deal with trauma. And finally, but not last, but definitely not least, I wanted to extend support to the Mrs. Gayatri Galloway, the Lady Gayatri. And I understand from being personally impacted with trauma myself and how it affects you, depression and all of that. And, when I watched the press conference when I could get to it, and you had mentioned that she's still, and you could see the stress and the strain on her. She's traumatized by what happened, right? And trauma is a personal thing to each individual. And, she's depressed. And I could tell you from my own experiences of years of depression, when the program cut me off, my only stipend, which was the only material support I had, I'm not eligible for benefits and any of these things, what's left of welfare. We don't even have welfare. They call it public assistance. Welfare destroyed by Bill Clinton, or the other things he destroyed. But in any event, it felt like I was stuck in the bottom or near the bottom of the ocean, and I was just being crushed by the feeling of isolation and betrayal and loneliness and all the different things that were destroying me. And slowly but slowly, I looked up to the light and I just started to tread water and head to the surface because I realized that in the state of depression I was in, things was only going to get worse. The tunnel was just leading into further and deeper darkness, and there was nothing for me to do there if I don't swim up. Whatever solution I was looking for was not going to happen at the bottom of the ocean. However, there is clinical depression, which is a complete disconnect from everything, from ties of people, of loved ones. It's just it eats you, like a parasite. It eats you like a demon. It attaches itself, and then the depression becomes overwhelming. and you can't really function. You don't get out of bed. You stop taking care of your hygiene. You don't care what the kids are doing. Hopefully she doesn't reach that level. But still in all, it was just my way of saying that I'm offering support to the lady Gayatri, and because there are much more serious things going on, as a generalization, not as a personalization, with the flotilla, with the people in Gaza. But depression is personal. And if you're no good for yourself, you can't be any good to anybody else, right? It's intimate and it's destructive. And I just wanted to extend my support to Clan Galloway. Thank you very much.
Well, that was pretty awesome contribution. I'm not sure what to say about it in her absence. She's definitely better now than she was on Monday and Sunday on the show. On Monday, at the time of the press conference, she literally had not slept or eaten anything since the event itself on Saturday morning. She has slept a bit now. She has eaten a bit now. She'll tell you herself, I'm sure, how she's feeling. I don't want to speak for her, but as the person closest to her, I definitely notice a difference, and she's definitely functioning. She has been functioning all day like a demon, busy making plans and making them happen, getting us back on our feet. You can imagine, for people that live as in the media, live in a communications hub, who are used to communicating with each other, with everyone else, with our comrades, with our public, with our followers, millions of followers, with our millions of viewers. We are constantly in need of communications equipment, and we had none. And she's fixed that by the grace of God. God bless you, Arobos, for your beautiful contribution. It's much appreciated. Now, on the podcast, that's going from strength to strength. We're in the top 5 in Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Russia this week. You can download the Moats podcast by scanning the QR code on your screen now. And of course, you can listen to the weekly podcast via the moats.tv website. And once you've listened, please leave a review and rate it highly. It helps us grow the podcast and more people will know about it. Let's go to line 3, where Nicola is in Arizona with a Palestinian Christian perspective. Nicola, welcome.
George, a huge fan, been following you for years before you became a journalist, when you were still a minister, and you were one of the first people to open your mouth and speak the truth about what's going on in the Middle East, and I have nothing but the ultimate respect for you. I am a Jordanian American, born in the U.S. I actually was in Jordan in '67 and slept in bomb shelters during the 6-Day War. My uncle was the highest-ranking Christian in the Jordanian army. At that point, I think Major was the highest. He was trained in Tel Aviv or Haifa, I'm not sure, under the British in the 20s. He was part of the Arab League and then became a Jordanian officer. He actually used to show me, he passed away now, but he used to show me all the letters he used to receive from Glub Pasha. I don't even know where to start, George. First of all, let me explain to the world who's watching that aren't Americans. The American people are generally good people. The problem we have in America is we have this fake two-party system that is really a one-party system. There is literally no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans when it comes to supporting the Zionists. And part of it is through things like Epstein, where they blackmail these people. Even Trump, a man I have nothing but disgust for. But this man, I believe, really would be going for peace in a few places. But, you know, when Murdoch released that letter, that was a shot across the bow, letting him know that if he doesn't do what the Zionists tell him, that they will expose him as the pedophile he was is, I don't know. But here's what I will tell you. It's absolutely amazing to me how many people have their head in the sand, how these Christian Zionists can still call themselves Christian and Zionist. One is a religious movement. My family last name is Haddad. We are the descendants of Abraham. We are probably the largest Christian and oldest Christian family in the world. So we actually belong to the Old and New Covenant. 25 years ago, I told everybody that knows me that Benjamin Netanyahu was either the Antichrist or the first assistant of Satan, because the reality is there is nothing honest about anything of the state of Israel. Every single prime minister had to change their name so they would sound Hebrew instead of sounding European. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu, this is his third name. His first name was Milikowski. His second name was, I think, Natai, and then it became Netanyahu. If you have to change your name to sound Hebrew so that people will believe you're part of the covenant, that deception, besides all the others, is telling on its own. And all I can say to you, George, is God bless you. God bless Roger Waters and all those beautiful British musicians and journalists and everybody else who have spoken the truth. The one thing that does bother me is how the British, the French, and the Germans, and I'm talking now not about the people, but the governments, have the nerve, and I'm using the word nerve, although I really want to use another word, to still be doing what they're doing to the Palestinians when those three groups are the biggest cause of 80 years of suffering. And I say 80, but it's longer. My uncle and my father both fought in the wars in Israel. And let me tell you this, that paper tiger called the Israeli army, they didn't win anything. Everybody that is from the Middle East will tell you that our current king's great-grandfather made a deal with Golda Meir, also not her real name, and had the troops withdraw. My father was a radio operator who received the message to withdraw the troops, even though the Jordanian army was defeating Israel on every front. And it wasn't easy. My father told me they had to boil leather to eat. They had to do things that were just crazy to survive. But yet they managed to reach, I can't remember if he said the hills of Jerusalem, the hills of Tel Aviv. I think it was Tel Aviv, if I'm not mistaken. And he literally said, I had to ask the person on the other side sending me the radio message, are you sure you want us to withdraw? We've died. We've done so many things to get to this point. So the biggest problem, and if people would just pay attention, they would realize the dishonesty of the Zionist regime. Literally every single thing they say is a lie. You know the old joke, how do you know they're lying? Because their mouth is moving. So I don't know, George. I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I will tell you as a devout Christian.
You've told us plenty. You've told us plenty, Nicola. It's the call of the night, and many a night, actually. Please spread the word amongst the good people of Arizona, the good people of the United States. And with that, I absolutely concur. The vast majority of American people I've met abroad and in the U.S. itself are very good people, but they are misled by false preachers and by fake leaders. Please spread the word about the show, and don't be a stranger. Call us again and encourage other Arab Americans to call us. I need to take a quick break. I realize I didn't take one at the hour, but coming up next, there's more on the flotilla breaking news. Call in now. As Hanan down under in Sydney, it's very early in the morning there. She'll be the first caller after this short break. Stay tuned. On the line is a legend. It's May in Oklahoma. On you go, May.
I know that when you started out in life, you probably were an outcast. And because of that, you love you love the outcast and you love the downtrodden. When I first started listening to you, you actually said you were embarrassed to have to ask for money. And I told you at that time that you didn't need to be, because you are worth your salt. Now you have Moats TV, and I hope you have no shame asking for money to support, because I believe you're finally coming into your own and understanding how very, very important you are to many, many people all over the world, millions, I'm sure. And you also ask not only for their support, for their understanding, and you help motivate us to take action. I know you motivate me. And now you're being recognized all over the world. And I want you to remember, on those days when you just feel like you don't know how you can do it anymore, because we all feel that way. We see the pictures, we see the videos, we hear the news reports. You know, we Americans hear about shootings, and we all just despair sometimes. But I want you on those days to remember, number one, how far you've come from your beginnings. And number two, how far you brought other people along with you. Because you are bringing other people along with you. And you
that's the most important thing, May. I have to stop you. You're going to make me cry. But the most important thing is the people I'm bringing with me.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Wow, what a bumper poll. 31,246 have now voted. Will Trump's Gaza peace plan succeed? On Telegram, 5% say yes. On X, 10% say yes. On the YouTube community poll, 7%. YouTube stream, 6%. And the creme de la creme, the Patreon supporters, 0% believe that Trump's Gaza peace plan will succeed. Let's make this a very big poll indeed. You've still got 15 minutes to cast your vote. Hanan is up early, down under, and good on her. She's following what's happening on the flotilla and has a point of view to express. Hanan, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good morning, George. Those heroes that they risking their life to bring food and aid to Palestinian people in Gaza. I really cannot see, but they are a hero. My suggestion, I was wondering with myself, I know there is two army ships. They joined them. One from Italy, one from Spain. I was wondering if there is each country, for example, every country send one ship army to support those people. I don't think Israel will dare to do anything to them. For example, one army ship from Venezuela, one army ship from from Russia, one army ship from China, one army from more country. They joined to support those people. I don't think Israel will dare, because it's not one ship, not two. I mean, I'm talking about the army ships. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
I appreciate it's morning where you are, and that you've been asleep. You've just woken up, but I'm afraid I have to be the bearer of bad news. The Spanish ship and the Italian ship and the Turkish drone all turned back and abandoned the flotilla, leaving it to its fate which is even now at this very moment being enjoyed. So even the 2 European Union countries and a third NATO country, Turkey, that did for cosmetic or public relations reasons field a warship to protect their own nationals, and many of these boats are actually flagged as Spanish boats, as Italian boats, as Turkish boats. There's no honor amongst these people. They turned tail and ran away, Hanan, leaving the heroes, as you described them, to their fate, which is even now being determined. God bless you, and all of you listening at this early hour, watching at this early hour in Australia Fair. Tim Kangaroo says, it does not matter if Hamas accepts or rejects this new proposal. History proves that Israel won't abide by it in any case. And Bourne says, Netanyahu's name is famous in every corner of the earth. He will be the most famous TikToker in the history of mankind. And Grazia Nalu says, why would anyone listen to or take Trump's peace deal seriously when he has been involved in Iran taking out peace negotiators? Lies, lies, lies. And Nikki A says, if there were mosques and churches sending funds to the Palestinian resistance, they would prosecute in the West. Definitely. And they have. Surely those congregations funding Israeli crimes should be prosecuted. Alas. Z.A. Lucasade says the Samud Flotilla have already won. It's a lose-lose situation for Israel either way. Clear the lines, it's Chairman Hawes, just about back on his feet after a mammoth 16-hour surgery on his broken back. I spoke to him earlier today. Delighted that the rest of you can hear him now. Chairman Hawes, welcome.
Hello, George. I just wanted to say that I'm glad to see you're back in good spirits. My greatest fear was, and as I said to you on the phone call, was they were going to repress your spirit, and you came out fighting, swinging both arms. I didn't realise what Gayatri had gone through until the meeting the live broadcast that you'd done, how she hadn't actually eaten or slept. That broke my heart when I looked at her, and I truly mean it, really did hurt my feelings that she suffered like that. And I'm glad that she's eating again, and I'm glad you've done what you've done, which is, be a good husband and a good partner for her and looked after her. And it also helps the fact that she's got all the family in the world that are all there, and especially your son Zane, who has been an absolute lifeline for me, and your daughter Lucy, who are wonderful people. I just wanted to say that that's the personal side of things of what's happening, and I'm glad you're fighting it. But I was wondering, would you mind if I spoke to you a little bit about Charlie Kirk and what's happening in America and what's happened to Israel?
Go on. I'm following it very closely myself.
Good. So, George, what I wanted to say was that what Israel has done in the last 2 years has, in my opinion, broken the back of anyone that can possibly think about saying that to comment on against Israel and what is anti-Semitic. There's no one that can ever say that anymore, because that story went down the drain of history, after the 70,000 to 80,000 to 100,000 number officially has come out. And the greatest thing out of everything that's happened, and this is the people of Gaza that have made the sacrifice, is the American public has turned on Benjamin Netanyahu and has turned against Israel. And what I can tell you is that there are politicians in America that are putting themselves up against the most famous AIPAC candidates, and they're putting themselves up as anti-AIPAC. And the movement of people in America right now, they are so sick and tired of seeing what's happening in Gaza, because it is being live streamed to them. And Israel thinks by buying TikTok, and Larry Ellison buying TikTok and trying to change the algorithm, it's going to change anything. Nothing's going to change until you stop murdering people. because there's always ways of that data video coming to America. And I'm, you know, I don't have a lot to do other than stay in bed and watch my back and watch my feed. And I've seen this movement across the whole of the American space. I don't know if you've seen it or not, George, but there is such vehement, absolute, abject hatred for what they deem to be the over control of American policy, media, and foreign policy that's been abdicated to Israel first. And it's you know, the dam is broken. There is no more love for Israel. There is no more sorrow or feeling sorry for Israel. So I think maybe one of the best things that could have possibly have happened is that with the murder of and genocide of Gaza, if America stops being an Israeli state, maybe Britain, France, Germany, and all these other places can turn around and throw off this shackle of Israeli guilt, Holocaust influence of, you know, feeling sorry for us. And we could actually live in a freer world where we don't have so much influence borne down on our government, civil service, and our medias. And this is going to be a turning. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, very much like yours, if I may paraphrase Shakespeare, nobody now moves for Israel out of love, only interest. And the price for those moving out of interest has rapidly escalated. It was said that Netanyahu was offering the late Charlie Kirk's outfit $150 million to try and staunch the flow of doubt, query, question, and the beginning of resentment and opposition that Kirk and Turning Point USA had already embarked upon. We learned today that Israel is paying between $6,000 and $7,000 per tweet to a select 16 influencers to encourage them, bribe them to tweet substantive pieces that they hope will influence the general public. But you know, the reason there is no possibility of that succeeding is that you cannot make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. If you're working with a pig's ear, it will never be beautiful. They can never make Israel beautiful again. When I first came into this struggle, the picture was painted of socialist kibbutz, of free love, go to Israel, girls in uniform throwing themselves at you. I was subjected to all of these mountain of temptations, but they never interested me. But sadly, they interested many of my generation. Nobody would even think for a second of falling for that kind of guff now. Israel is exposed as the ugliest state on earth. Its ideology, the ugliest ideology on earth. Its practice in the field and around the world as the ugliest on the earth. And that will never be reversed. You can make it 60,000 a tweet. And if anybody takes it and does it, it will fall flat on its face, because you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Big thanks, Hoz, as always. Now, big thanks to the donors. I better hurry up. You've shown so much support again this week. Tonight's top donors who've supported the show and the developments in Asia and Africa that we have in mind. You have been so generous this week. Deborah Burke, Robert Clegg, Janice Hurley, James Glass, who's a weekly donor, by the way, and Keith Crosby. A big thanks to all of you, and all of you who are going to donate before the end of this evening. Scan the QR code now check out moats.tv. We are the home of independent journalism. Amy is in Illinois on Palestine. Go ahead, Amy.
Yes, good evening. I'm so grateful that you took my call, and I respect your family so much. I'm so happy that you and your wife are safe, your family's safe. I've been to the West Bank. I'm fortunate to have been married to a great man, smart man, a Palestinian from the West Bank for 43 years. And I've gone to the West Bank in 1993 because I heard stories from my mother-in-law who had, during the Nakba, had 3 children, had to go hide in a cave. So I know firsthand. It makes me very emotional. So I've been seeing this, and I'm happy to see that the whole world now seems to be waking up. And I love your show. I respect you so much because you do talk the truth. And I get a little nervous, so I am a retired teacher. I used to teach children with special needs, but I also went back in 2014 to visit my husband's relatives. Beautiful people. I stayed in a refugee camp in 1993. I went to visit my husband's family with my 4 children. Wonderful. They took care of me. And I got to experience the curfews, and my husband's brother had to go out, break curfew to earn money for his family. So they're very hardworking, honest, good people. And I'm happy to see that our Creator is showing who they are, these devils, who are the real terrorists, and I pray for those people.
Amen. A beautiful call. A beautiful call, Amy. And please give my salam, my greetings to all of your family, your extended family in America and in Palestine. Your words, trust me, whilst nervously spoken, were as sharp as an arrow. Stephanie is in Connecticut on the flotilla. Stephanie, welcome.
Hi, George. Thank you for taking my call. And I first want to say, along with everyone else, that I'm so glad that you and Gayatri are safe. I just want to say that I noticed that the IDF individual who was issuing the warning to the flotilla had an American accent. So I'm assuming that she
totally.
is.
She was as American as you, Steph.
And I'm absolutely outraged by it. And I think that people like her who go to work for the IDF should lose their U.S. citizenship. I just absolutely believe it. There's an entire flotilla of American war veterans in that flotilla, and she is working against them. And to me, that's an act of treason, and she should lose her citizenship. And that's all I want to say about that.
Brilliant. Well, when you say it's all you want to say, it's a point of great moment, of great weight, and devastatingly delivered. But I did record, as you did, that the person giving that warning on behalf of the so-called Israel, so-called Defense Force, was as American as apple pie. 728 days we have all been watching in 4K, in high res, in 4G, 5G. We have been watching this. We have done whatever we could to highlight it, to rail against it, to mobilize others against it, to move our political leaders about it. And we have failed. And we have failed the flotilla. We have failed the needs of the hour. But we're not going to give up. There'll be another flotilla. There'll be more struggle all around the world to further isolate Israel. And if they kill anyone tonight, or kill anyone tomorrow, or next week, or the week after, from amongst us, it will merely hasten, not delay, their decline and fall. I've got to say that many of you, most of you, and quite rightly and movingly, have been very touched by the obvious devastation that Gayatri suffered as a result of the events on Saturday morning at Gatwick Airport. But I'm delighted to say she's in top form again now. And she's with me for the social media news roundup. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Well, I should say thanks to everyone who have tried to reach out to us. It really means a lot to us, knowing that all our devices, all our comms have been taken from us, stolen from us, and you still are trying to reach out to show your support and your love. Because it, as I explained during the press conference, it was horrific. It was a complete nightmare, and now coming back to base, trying to get back to life, facing the routines, but knowing that everyone has seen the newspapers with your picture and the accusation of terror charges.
And your fingernail.
And my fingernail. So that's it's a painful experience, but the knowledge that all you guys are reaching out means a lot to me and to us. I must emphasize that the call from Erobos was enormously touching. And I'm sorry you went through that. I want to say that I am better now, and I am not depressed, because we are true believers of what we stand for, what we say, what we present during the show, and we will move on, we will go on. They will not silence us, will they not?
No. They said we didn't have the right to silence. We have no wish of silence.
That's the way to put it.
As long as God gives us breath,
that's the way to put
we'll
it.
be talking.
That's the way to put it. And just on that subject, because of course our dear friend Ahmed Caballo, who was the founder of African Stream, another output of independent news, confronting the world with, showing the world the truth, they have been shut down with direct interference from the US. But I'm glad to say that today Ahmed Caballo and his friends have launched a new media outfit called Sovereign Media. And this is, as they say, an anti-imperialist coalition bringing together voices from the global south and the global north who refuse to bow to censorship or empire. We're with them. We refuse. Beautiful. We refuse. So we should hopefully get him or one of the others.
On, yes, yeah, for sure.
It's a beautiful umbrella setup. So
Sovereign Media, it's a good name.
Wonderful, perfect name. Now, speaking of sovereign, I actually wanted to touch upon something that is very close to my heart, and is the occasion of today, because 60 years ago was the start of the killing spree in my country, Indonesia. This was the massacre, unknown massacre that took place in Indonesia, in which between 1/2 to 3 million civilians were killed. They were supposed communist sympathizers. Now, this is at the time when Indonesia had the third largest communist party in the whole world after China and the Soviet Union, and this was peak Cold War. So imagine the scare it brought to the White House and Downing Street. So obviously, as they say, as has been quoted, it was necessary to liquidate Sukarno, our founding leader. And there you go. The usual playbook was turned out, false flag, and
it was a color revolution, except there was so much red blood. It's not easy to see it in that light.
No.
Color revolution sounds rather milder than a massacre of millions of people.
Yeah, the downside is that even though it's 60 years ago, it's still unheard of today, because the Communist Party was then since banned and is until today, and it's basically been erased from our history books. So very successful project. But what I wanted to convey is that the main killings took place in Java, North Sumatra, but also Bali. Bali was one of the targets. And I want to just remind our audience that whilst Bali may remind you or may cause you to picture idyllic islands, paradise, it's gorgeous. The whole of Indonesia is gorgeous. But that particular island suffered a lot. And we have visited before one of the survivors whose father was just a teacher. He was killed as well during the massacres. And he has dedicated a special memoriam in his family courtyard called Taman 65, means Park 65. And it's not much wanted, not wished for, because people like to just forget about it. So next time you think of Bali, you actually head to Bali, you can look up this Taman 65.
And remember the blood that once flowed there. When the Beatles were top of the charts, we're not talking ancient history, we're talking 1965. Thank you, Gayatri. I'll take it for chips very shortly, but we must hear an important call from Nevada, from Kamal on the flotilla. Go ahead, Kamal.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am in solidarity with most people in your audience, and thank you for the call. I'm happy you two together. That was quite a scare, I must say. I was when I heard that they finally cracked down on someone who's actually preaching and casting good spells for everyone, I was quite concerned. I'm going to jump right to a message to the United Kingdom.
That's the country we've got now, Kamal.
No, it's quite scary, and we're seeing changes here in the United States as well. That's so very concerning. So theologically, I've been kind of falling back on that, and then working with Thomas Aquinas a little bit, and understanding the ethics of laws. I've been learning a lot. A message to the United Kingdom, and then to the flotilla, if I could, sir. The United Kingdom, of course. With all respect, we need to have media outlets that help people vent, to help people express themselves. If you shut down these media outlets, you create a pressure cooker that could be like a Pandora's box, that could become volatile. So I would like to plead to the leadership, to MI6, and to those who are listening, to allow for moats, and of course they're great, Mr. Galloway and his wife, and of course our community, to allow us to express ourselves. We made the same mistake here in the United States with Scott Ritter and with other people. They put fear in you to try to guide you in a direction of their liking. From America, from studying Thomas Aquinas, from studying our founding fathers here in the United States of America, I would implore the United Kingdom to please allow moats to exist as it is. Because for all of us, we get to vent, and then that vent could produce a peaceful outcome. So that's my statement to the United Kingdom.
Beautiful call to finish on, Kamal, and I'm deeply grateful to you for making it. As a very great American, Jack Kennedy said, "Those who make peaceful change impossible make violent revolution inevitable." And all of our security services should bear that in mind. Moats is in no danger from them. We do not require their permission. If they make it impossible to broadcast from here, we'll broadcast it from somewhere else. This is not 1925. This is 2025. The internet is big and wide, bigger and wider than the biggest and widest oceans. They will not silence us. On the contrary, we're planning not just 2 moats a week, but 2 new moats. And we are at an advanced stage on preparing that. A Moats Asia and a Moats Africa. It's been a rock and roll week, topsy and turvy, but our show tonight is dedicated to the heroes, men and women, that have sailed on and on into the guns, which have not fired yet, and which we pray will not fire. But the courage and decorum and dignity and morality of these hundreds of pilgrims, for that's what they are. They're doing God's work. These pilgrims that have taken to the high seas and are now in the hands of the devil's army. We pray for their safe deliverance. It's been marvelous. For me and for Gayatri, we're greatly touched and heartened by all of your good wishes. It's been a difficult few days for us, but it's much, much, much more difficult for our friends on the flotilla this evening. Pray for them. Good night.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.